All right, welcome to Big Time Basketball, the basketball portion of the Fantasy Fanatics podcast. I'm your host once again, James, and I'm joined once again by Nate. What's up, man?
So,
In today's episode, we'll just break down some of the games that happened on Sunday night, as well as some of the games that have finished on Monday night, and the ones that are still in progress as we're recording. Then we'll just talk about some fantasy basketball pickups for basketball leagues. Then we'll just talk some injury news, just some general talk, and then we'll preview some of the games for the Tuesday night slate. So, Nate, let's just hop right into it. Just taking a look at some of Sunday's scores. And the first game we'll start with is the overtime win here for the Indiana Pacers against the Miami Heat, 109-106. Like that's a big win for the Pacers. Um, I guess they're just trying to find their way into a playoff spot. And Miami's a team already in a playoff spot. So what do you think about this game?
I think when you can beat a team that's, I guess, ranked pretty high in the playoff rankings, I think the Heat are ranked fifth as of now. That's usually a good sign. You usually want to be able to beat teams like that.
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at some of the stats for the Pacers, they played really solid ball. Dementis Sabonis, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 1 assist, really solid for him. And then Miles Turner, 16 points, and 6 rebounds, 1 assist. So he's just been really solid as well. And then Justin Holiday in there, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. So really solid for him. And then Doug McDermott also had 15 points to go along with his 7 rebounds and 2 assists. Um, and yeah, I mean, the Pacers, I guess they just seem to be turning it around.
Yeah, for sure. They have a pretty well-rounded cast, at least for the starting five and for some of the people off the bench. So again, that's a very good sign for the Pacers.
And then, yeah, just looking at some of the stats for Miami, we have Bam Adebayo here, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. So a big line for him. And then we have Jimmy Butler here, 21 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists. So another double double there. And then we have Duncan Robinson, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. So another solid night for him as well. And I guess for this Miami team, I don't know, was this an off night or I mean, is this something that we need to be serious about because their losing streak is now at 3 games?
Um, I guess it could be kind of like a small warning sign. I mean, the Pacers, they have been in playoffs in the past, so it's not like they're necessarily a bad team, but at the same time, um, their scoring just hasn't been where it could be. And I think Miami could play a lot better than how they played in this game, but we'll have to see going forward how they perform.
Yeah, for sure. And just moving on to the next game, we have the OKC Thunder beating the Houston Rockets by a score of 114 to 112. It's the 20th straight loss for the Rockets. It's a new franchise record, and that's never a good thing when you lose 20 games in a row. Just looking at some of the OKC stats, we got Lugens Dort with 23 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. And then we have Isaiah Roby, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. And then we have, I think you say Svi Mik- Mikhailiuk. Is that how you say it?
I think so. Svi
Sev-
Mikhailiuk.
Svi Mikhailiuk. Okay, we'll go with that. 15 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. So just some good stats here. I think Justin Jackson also dropped 15 points, so solid from him. Um, no Shy Gilgis Alexander in this game, and yet OKC pulled it out. I guess it's because it's against the Rockets.
Yeah, it looks like almost any team who faces the Rockets, they can kind of be confident that they'll be able to get a win, which is kind of not what you want to be known as a basketball team. So we'll see if Houston can turn things around.
Yeah, I guess when we get to Monday night's games, we'll definitely talk about that. But just looking at some of Houston's stats in this game, we had Christian Wood 27 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. Then we have Victor Oladipo 23 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals for him. We had John Wall here with 24 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals. And then Daniel House Jr., 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. So some of the players on this team had a solid night. I guess they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, it's always looking like they're coming up short, and it's not like they're not trying to win. It's just that I don't know, things just haven't been clicking lately.
Yeah, it must be that Houston is not very good at defense because they have some very excellent offensive players on this team. Or maybe it's just the team not gelling together. I'm not really sure what it is.
It could be a combination of that. I noticed that the starting five has some really good stats and some really heavy minutes, and then I guess past Kenyon Martin Jr. around that point, there you don't really see a lot of production there, so that could be a part of that too.
Yeah. And then moving on to the next game, we have the Denver Nuggets beating, or sorry, we have the New Orleans Pelicans beating the Denver Nuggets by a score of 113 to 108. Just looking at some of the Pelicans statistics here, Brandon Ingram 30 points, six rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, so a fantastic game for him. And also Zion Williamson dropping 30 as well with 6 rebounds and 1 assist, so he had a really solid game. Nickel Alexander Walker 20 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, so a solid game for him. And then Josh Hart 12 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, so a pretty good line there for him. And what do you make of these Pelicans here beating on the Denver Nuggets?
I mean, it's a good sign if you can beat Denver, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then speaking of Denver, just taking a look at some of their stats, we had Nikola Jokic with the triple double, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. He's just been solid this whole year. Jamal Murray, 23 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists. We got Michael Porter Jr., 17 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist. And Will Barton, 16 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals for him. So, I mean, they had guys putting up points on the board, but ultimately, Denver's just been very inconsistent this year.
Yeah, it's like when they're good, they're really good, but then they have some nights where they're not as good. Um, Again, I notice their star players, they're good every night, but I guess some of their role players are just kind of on and off.
Yeah, it just seems like they can't really get consistency throughout their lineup. And then just moving on to the next game, we have here the Boston Celtics beating the Orlando Magic by a score of 112 to 96. And I mean, Jalen Brown just had a really fantastic game here. He dropped 34 points. He had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, so really solid for him. Jason Tatum 23 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and Kemba Walker 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals for him. Boston's another one of those inconsistent teams. So what do you think about this win here?
I mean, it's a much needed win, I think, for Boston. I mean, they're in the playoff conversation for sure, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you can kind of beat teams that are lower in the standings. Not to say that like the Magic are that bad, but at the same time, they're not. I guess they're like kind of they're outside of the playoff conversation for now. So, uh, yeah, it's pretty important that you beat teams like the Magic if you're the Celtics.
Yeah, definitely beating the teams below you is really important. And then I guess in this game for the Magic, we had Nikola Vucevic, 22 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, so very solid for him. James Ennis the third, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist. And then Evan Fournier, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals for him. So a good line in the loss. And then I guess for Orlando, their season's pretty much done. I think they're a little too far.
Yeah, I guess this is just going to be there's kind of like looking to next season, see what they can improve, what's working, what's not working, what needs to be changed around.
Yeah, most definitely. And then just looking at the next game, we have the Brooklyn Nets beating the Washington Wizards by a score of 113 to 106. Just taking a look at some of the scores from the Nets. We got Kyrie Irving, 28.7 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals. So solid for him. James Harden, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals for him. And Joe Harris, 10 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, as well as Nicholas Claxton, 16 points and 3 rebounds for him. DeAndre Jordan added 12 points, 5 boards, and 2 assists. So a solid overall game from this team. Well, I mean, it is the Washington Wizards. I don't know. What did you think about this game?
I mean, it's one of the best teams in the East against one of the worst teams in the East. So it kind of was expected that there would be a pretty solid win for Brooklyn, but I think Washington still did a good job. They kept it pretty competitive. It was only a 7 point difference. It definitely could have been worse. So I'd say that even though this was a loss, I wouldn't say this was a bad loss.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a bad loss either. Just taking a look at some of the stats for the Wizards, Russell Westbrook, 29 points, 13 rebounds, 13 assists, big triple double for him. Rui Hachimura, 20 points and 10 rebounds. So a solid double double for him. Alex Len, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist. And Bradley Beal, 17 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists. So a little bit of a quiet night from Bradley Beal's normal standards. I assume that he'll just get right back into his normal standards in the next game.
Yeah, but I guess it's also good that you see Alex Len with 20 points, 9 rebounds, Rui Hachimura, 20 points, 10 rebounds, Russell Westbrook with another triple double as usual. So it's starting to look like he can kind of rely on his other teammates. I even see Robin Lopez here with 12 points, 5 rebounds. So even if Bradley Beal plays what would be for him a bad night, he can start to depend on his team more, which is again a good sign for Washington going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely agree with that. And I guess speaking of being able to depend on their team, it looks like Cleveland was able to do that last night. They win the game 116-105 over the Toronto Raptors. Just taking a look at some of the stats here for Cleveland. Colin Sexton dropped 36 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. So he had a really solid game. And then also in there, Jared Allen, 17 points, 15 rebounds, 1 assist. So big game for him. Dean Wade here had 16 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and Darius Garland 15 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. So um, a lot of players just really came to play for the Cavs, and it just really looked like the Raptors just couldn't do anything in this game.
Uh, the Cleveland Cavaliers were able to keep the lead for pretty much the whole game, and especially in the third quarter where there was a big scoring drought for the Raptors. And the Raptors tried to come back with 30 points in the fourth, but by that point, it was just too late. Cleveland was just able to run away with the game.
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at some of the Raptors stats, got Fred Van Vliet in here with 23 points, 1 rebound, 7 assists. And then we got Norman Powell, 18 points, 2 rebounds. Kyle Lowry, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. So a big night for Kyle Lowry. And then OG Anunoby with 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists. Just looking at these stats here, it looks like Pascal Siakam was pretty quiet in this game.
Yeah, not it was not just Pascal. It was a lot of the team. Normally, you would see, I guess, decent production from almost everybody on the Raptors, but this game it looked like they were pretty much carried by like four guys, and that's not something you want on a team that's trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah, speaking of teams trying to make the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls did themselves a favor beating the Detroit Pistons by a score of 100 to 86. So a pretty big win there for the Bulls. Just looking at some of the stats here, we have Zach Levine, 18 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Laurie Markkinen, 16 points and 8 rebounds for him. And Patrick Williams with 10 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 assist. Um, yeah, this Bulls team's really trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and this is again a game that you have to win if you're trying to make the playoffs, especially considering the Detroit is 15th in the East, so like, you wouldn't want to lose to a team like Detroit if you're trying to make the playoffs. So, again, solid win by the Bulls.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the stats for Detroit here, Jeremy Grant, 26 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists, really solid. Mason Plumlee, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks, so a really big line for him. Frank Jackson, 12 points, 5 rebounds, and Isaiah Stewart, 11 points and 6 rebounds. So, I mean, Detroit did have some decent scoring, but I guess they've just been in a really bad team overall this year.
Yeah, they just haven't been able to, I guess, compare offensively to the other teams. I've heard other commentators say that their defense is pretty decent, but I guess it looks like they have to kind of work on their offense more now.
Yeah, for sure. And we have another overtime game here. The Philadelphia 76ers beat the New York Knicks in overtime by a score of 101 to 100. So that's a really close win for the Sixers. Uh, Definitely them missing guys like Embiid, missing guys like Seth Curry and others. It was just really tough for them, but they were able to eke out the win. Shake Milton, 21 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Tobias Harris, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Big game for him. Ben Simmons, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and Danny Green 11 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 5 steals, and 3 blocks. So another huge fantasy day for Danny Green owners. Yeah, what do you think about this game for Philly, especially?
It was a clutch win, especially with Embiid out. They proved that they're deep enough to still take games, so that's again really important. When you get into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. Just looking at some of the stats for the Knicks, Julius Randle, 24.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 steals. So a big game for him. Alec Burks, 20.6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. So a solid game for him as well. RJ Barrett in there with 19 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. And Nerlens Noel, 13 points and 10 rebounds for the double double. So the Knicks just played well, but the Sixers are such a good team this year.
Yeah, they're one of the teams that are really difficult to stop, especially if you're one of the other teams in the East. And New York did as well as I think you could expect them to. It was basically down to the wire and they almost took it, but 76ers were just able to hold on to the win. And it was all the way in overtime, too. So, again, this is what I would consider not a bad loss, in my opinion.
Yeah, and speaking of a game that definitely wasn't down to the wire, we have the Phoenix Suns beating up on the LA Lakers. No LeBron James in this game, no Anthony Davis. The Suns are just such a deep team. They're such a good team this year. They just dominated this game. Just looking at some of the stats, DeAndre Ayton, 26 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. Devin Booker, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Jay Crowder, 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Chris Paul, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists for the triple double. So really solid from Chris Paul. And Mikal Bridges, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist. So very solid for him as well. Um, I mean, can the Lakers beat anybody right now? Or is this Phoenix team just really good?
I mean, I think the Lakers will be able to beat some teams. I don't know how high of the caliber of teams they'll be able to beat. It looks like Phoenix isn't one of those teams. especially with all the players that they have. They're just way too deep to be able to take without your two best players.
Yeah, for sure. And they really had just two players that mainly went off for them. Montrezl Harrell had 23 points, 10 rebounds. Dennis Schroeder had 22 points, one rebound, and three assists. And then just one other notable here, Taylor Horton Tucker, 17 points, six rebounds, and three assists. And then there wasn't much else. I mean, Kuzma did have 13 points, but I mean, yeah, like you said, they're just really missing LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else will do their best to kind of pick up the slack, but again, missing LeBron James and missing AD is it's kind of tough to come back from, especially when you're in the West.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of another Western game here, we have the Dallas Mavericks and the Portland Trail Blazers. The Mavericks really beating up on the Blazers, 132 to 92. Just a solid game from Dallas here. Luka Doncic, 37 points, seven rebounds, four assists, really solid. And then Josh Richardson, 21 points, three rebounds, four assists. And then Dorian Finney-Smith, 13 points, five rebounds, two assists. Porzingis had 12 points, eight rebounds, four assists. And then Tim Hardaway in there with 11 points, six rebounds. So just really solid from Dallas. This is definitely a must win for them. They're definitely trying to get that playoff spot. I think they've been playing really well as of late.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're really proving that they deserve to be in the playoffs, especially if they keep playing like this for the rest of the season. And I really wasn't expecting them to beat Portland twice. This I don't remember if this was a back to back, but they did play Portland shortly before this game, and they won the last game as well. So again, a very solid performance by Dallas.
Yeah, and they've won seven out of their last 10, so they're definitely doing themselves a favor trying to get into the playoffs. Just looking at Portland stats, Damian Lillard, 19 points, one rebound, four assists. We got Gary Trent Jr. in here with 16 points, two rebounds, one assist. Nazir Little, 14 points, two rebounds, one assist. And CJ McCollum, 13 points, two rebounds, and one assist. And I guess as for the Blazers, they have been hot. They've won seven out of their last 10, but I guess this was just a really determined Dallas team.
Yeah, it was just really hard to stop. Even with Damian Lillard, he wasn't able to, I guess, clutch the game out like he normally is. Like sometimes he'll just get 40 points and take the win, but this wasn't that night. And they are still missing Yusuf Nurkic, which doesn't help, especially when you have to go up against Porzingis and Doncic. So yeah, it was a really tough game for them.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely something to think about when Portland does get him back, that they'll definitely be a better team. And I guess just moving to some of the Monday scores here, the Sacramento Kings beating the Cleveland Cavaliers by a score of 119 to 105. And just looking at some of the stats from this game for Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox, 30.6 rebounds, six assists, really solid. Tyrese Halliburton, 28 points, one rebound, two assists. We got Buddy Hield, 19 points, six rebounds, two assists. We got Rayshawn Holmes with 17 points, 16 rebounds, and three assists. So, what do you think about this Kings team? Do you think they have a chance to try and get back and maybe try and get into a playoff spot? Or I guess maybe it might be a little too late for them.
I'm not sure if they'll be able to make the playoffs this year. It's a bit too late. Um, yeah, they have about 25 losses, and yeah, they're just way too behind at this point. But I think this is still not a bad Kings team. They do have a pretty good starting five. They just need to kind of work on their depth a little bit.
Yeah, speaking of another team that's kind of far, Cleveland just seems to be pretty far from the playoffs as well. JaVale McGee, 18 points, nine rebounds, three assists. So big game for him. Then Darius Garland, 17 points, two rebounds, 17 points, two assists, one steal for him. And then Colin Sexton, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. And I mean, I guess this was just a game that, maybe we thought Cleveland was going to be in it early, but I guess ultimately Sacramento just really came through and got the win.
Yeah, especially in the third where they were able to outscore Cleveland by 10 points. I mean, Cleveland, they're looking like a pretty good young team and they're improving at a decent rate, but I guess they're not at the point where we can expect them to be a deep threat anytime soon.
Yeah, and I guess just looking at one of the other games, we had the OKC Thunder beating the Minnesota Timberwolves by a score of 112 to 103. And then just looking at some of the stats for OKC, we got in here Shai Gilgeous Alexander back for this game, 31 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. He's pretty much the heartbeat of this team. Um, we got Ty Jerome in here, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. Kenrick Williams, 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. And Alexei Pokusevsky, 13 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists for the double double. So solid from him as well. Um, I guess these were just two bottom teams in the West that just went at it, and OKC just looked like the better team.
Yeah, I was actually kind of expecting Minnesota to win a little bit, but I guess just looking at the scores, Minnesota just didn't have enough personnel, I guess, producing enough. Carl Anthony Towns, really solid game. Anthony Edwards, solid game. Ricky Rubio, solid. Jalen Noel, solid. But um, there was solid production from, I guess, a larger portion of OKC than Minnesota this game.
Yeah, Carl Anthony Towns with the 33 point, 10 rebound double double. Then, like you said, Ricky Rubio, 11.11 assists, double double for him. Anthony Edwards, 16 points. Jalen Noel, 14 points. So, I mean, they did have some scores, but I guess it just wasn't enough.
Not this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, and speaking of an unfortunate result, I was watching the Spurs game here. They lost to the Hornets by a score of 100-97. They lost really late there. It was really close. Game went right down to the wire. So just looking at some of the Hornet scores, Gordon Hayward 27 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. PJ Washington 10 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists. Terry Rozier 24 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists. He's doing a really good job filling in for LaMelo Ball. And then Malik Monk, 11 points and 1 rebound, 3 assists for him. So yeah, it looks like Charlotte played solid without LaMelo.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon Hayward is still, I guess, an all-star caliber player. Like he's one of those players that are like you could argue that he is an all-star based on like I guess depending on how you want to argue his stats and argue his play style, but he definitely showed how good he was this game.
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at some of the Spurs scores here, their MVP, DeMar DeRozan, 28 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, really solid. Derek White, 21 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. He also had a good game. And then both Patty Mills and Rudy Gay throwing up 10 points there in the loss. And as for the Spurs, I mean, the West is tough. They've just been 500 over their last 10. I think that they really need to really turn this around, or else they could actually drop out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, again, the Hornets aren't that bad of a team either. I think they're also in the playoff race, but at the same time, um, the West is like the conference where 500 just isn't good enough.
Mm.
So you want to be able to make sure that you win these type of games.
Yeah, speaking of the type of games that you need to win, Utah really has turned things around after this game here on Monday night. They beat the Bulls 120-95, big blowout. Just a solid game for the Jazz. Donovan Mitchell, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Rudy Gobert, 21 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists. You got Joe Ingles, 17 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. Jordan Clarkson, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. And Mike Conley, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. So a really solid game for this whole Jazz squad. And then just looking at the Bulls, Zach Levine, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Thaddeus Young, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Thomas Satoransky, 13 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. And Kobe White adding 10 points as well. Um, yeah, the Jazz just did what they needed to do, which they haven't really been doing as of late.
Yeah, I guess this is the game where they kind of have to shake the rust off and go out and try to show everybody why they're still, I guess, number one in the West.
And I guess they were a tough matchup for a Bulls team that's really trying to make the playoffs there in the East.
Yeah, the Jazz team is a tough team just for most teams in general, but it doesn't help, especially when you're ninth and you're trying to get a playoff spot.
Yeah, and then speaking of a team that's trying to get a playoff spot, the Boston Celtics losing one in overtime to the Memphis Grizzlies, 132-126. Just looking at some of the stats for the Grizzlies, Ja Morant, 29 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists. Dylan Brooks, 24 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists for him. And then Jonas Valanciunas, 16 points, 19 rebounds, 2 assists. So really solid for him. Kyle Anderson adding 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists. I mean, this Grizzlies team is actually trying to make the playoffs there in the West.
Yeah, and they're pretty close. Again, they're another 500 team, but as we said before, that isn't quite good enough to make the playoffs. But beating a team like the Celtics is a good start to being able to I guess earn a playoff spot. So as long as they keep beating other playoff caliber teams, they should be uh, I guess on their way. I guess we'll have to see if they get the spot, but again, beating playoff caliber teams is always a good sign.
Yeah, and speaking of a team that's not really playoff caliber, the Boston Celtics, just looking at some of their scores, 27 points for Jaylen Brown. He also had 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Jeff Teague, 26 points and 6 assists. And Marcus Smart, 16 points, along with his 5 rebounds and 5 assists. And then Robert Williams, 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. And I mean, for this Boston team, missing Jason Tatum, I had a feeling it was going to affect them a little bit. It definitely did. They're just barely in that eighth spot there in the East. They've just been so inconsistent.
Yeah, Jason Tatum is one of their best scorers, if not the best scorer on the team. So everybody's been trying to step up and trying to fill in, but they're just missing that guy who can just get, I guess, get points for you. And Jason Tatum is the guy on their team who you just need to give him the ball and he'll just score. So again, really unfortunate for the Boston Celtics, but I guess they'll have to look for the next game.
Yeah, speaking of a team that was also missing their main guy, but they got it done. Milwaukee hammering the Pacers without Giannis, 140-113. This was a big time blowout. Milwaukee scores here. Drew Holiday, 28 points, 5 rebounds, 14 assists, double double for him. Chris Middleton, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Pat Connaughton, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. And Bobby Portis, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. He also finished with a double double. And I mean, Brooke Lopez even put down 18 points. This Bucks team just broke out.
Yeah, it was looking like the Pacers would be able to keep it competitive going into the game, but um, the Bucks showed that they're still third in the East, so very dominant performance by the Bucks, and I guess a big question for the Bucks was is the Bucks deep enough to contend in the playoffs without Giannis? And This looks like this might be the answer going forward.
Yeah, our questions were definitely answered with the Bucks, but then as for the Pacers, I mean they're trying to get into the playoffs, but I feel like this was sort of the game they should have taken. I mean, just looking at some of the stats here, Domantas Sabonis 22 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Jeremy Lamb 21 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Doug McDermott 20 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and Karis LeVert, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals for him. So I mean, they did put up some solid stats, but it wasn't even close.
It wasn't close at all. I mean, the the Bucks just found a way to just hold on to the lead, and more than hold on to the lead, they were just able to outscore the Pacers at almost every turn. And like you said, like the Pacers, they didn't do bad at all, but this game it wasn't nearly enough.
Yeah, speaking of a weird game here, we have a couple games left. Let me just get to this one first here. From Monday night, the LA Clippers with a big comeback, beating the Atlanta Hawks and ending their winning streak 119-110. I mean, I did like the Clippers in this game, but once the Hawks went up, I did not expect them to come back. But the Clippers roared back in a big comeback. And I mean, what do you think about this game?
I think this was an important game for the Clippers. Um, they are fourth, and the Hawks are fifth in the East. So you want to be able to show that you can beat teams like the Hawks going into the playoffs. So uh, they were also missing Serge Ibaka. So I guess that's another question that they have for the Clippers. Without a player like Serge Ibaka, would they still be able to get the job done? And it looks like they are.
Yeah, they clearly did get the job done. Kawhi Leonard, 25.7 rebounds, 5 assists. Terrence Mann, 21 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists for the double double. Luke Kennard, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. And Marcus Morris with 19 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Even Paul George didn't get double digit points, and I mean they still won this game. How surprised are you at that?
I'm a little bit surprised. I wouldn't expect Marcus Morris to be the one getting 19, and for Paul George to only get 8. But I guess just looking at some of the people who I guess were on the bench, you had Luke Kennard with 20 and 7, Terrence Mann with 21 and 10. So again, a very impressive performance by the bench and very impressive performance by Marcus Morris.
Yeah, most definitely. And then just looking at some of the stats from this Hawks team, Trey Young, 28 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. John Collins, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. And Clint Capella, 12 points, 14 rebounds. Tony Snell, 13 points to go with his 6 rebounds and 1 assist. So, I mean, just mainly two guys put up points for the Hawks. And then I guess they just got contained there in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, Kawhi is the claw.
Yeah, Kawhi, he's just another just dominant player on both ends of the floor. And I mean, I guess just using this as a transition, his old team just really didn't fare well. I saved this game for last because I really wanted to talk about this. The Houston Rockets ending their 20-game losing streak by beating the Toronto Raptors by a score of 117-99. I know your favorite team is the Raptors, and you also know that I like to watch the Raptors as well. I think at this point, the Raptors season is done. I think we can agree with that. I think that they really need to focus on rebuilding their team. Um, and then, yeah, I don't know whether it was just the determination of the Rockets or if it was just a poor performance from the Raptors or both. Um, I guess before I get your opinion on it, let me just get to some of the scores from Houston here. Sterling Brown, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists for the double double. Jay Sean Tate, 22 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals for him. Daniel House, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists. And John Wall, 19 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists for the triple double. Christian Wood throwing down 19 points as well to go with his 4 rebounds and 1 assist. What happened here?
I mean, it's kind of it's just once again the Raptors weren't able to keep up with the scoring of the other team, which is weird to say because just last year and the year before they were one of the teams that were really good defensively. So I'm not sure if it's because they're missing Serge Ibaka still and they haven't been able to replace him. I'm not sure if the coach adjustments haven't been enough. I know that you can kind of see Nick Nurse. He's uh, trying. I guess he's doing what he can, and he's looking pretty frustrated at times. So it's not like they're not trying. I know Chris Boucher got 10 rebounds, but he only got 4 points. So something I've noticed about the Raptors is that the roster has a lot of forwards and a lot of guards, and their big man position is pretty thin. So they're gonna need to, I guess, find a way to kind of bolster that. But we'll have to see what happens next season.
Yeah, speaking of their center position, Pascal Siakam did start at center in this game, which shows a lack of depth, as you spoke of. He had 21 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, so good double double for him. Fred VanVleet, 27 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 steals, so a big game for VanVleet as well. Kyle Lowry, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, and Norman Powell, 19 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. But other than that, I know we had talked about this with the Kings last couple episodes where they were just relying too much on their starters. And I mean, the rest of their team just hasn't been doing much outside of that. I mean, Chris Boucher is not even scoring anymore. Neither is Aaron Baines. Stanley Johnson is clearly not working out for them. Malachi Flynn. I mean, you can go through this whole roster. I mean, Terrence Davis wasn't even in the lineup. So, um, honestly, I don't know what to make of this Raptors team anymore.
I don't really know either. Like normally you would see like not just the starting five, but the bench has pretty good production. But it looks like Nick Nurse is he's just trying what he can, trying whatever lineups he thinks is gonna have a chance. So I guess we're just gonna have to see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and losing 9 games in a row is not going to help you get into the playoffs.
No, not at all.
All right, let's just move from there into our fantasy pickups. I'll start with 3 of your pickups, and then I'll get to 3 of mine, and then you can finish off your pickups, and then I'll finish off the rest of mine. So, just get to 3 players that you really think are good pickups for fantasy ball leagues.
Sure. I guess I'll start with Vika Zubac. Um, he's 38% rostered right now, rank 87. He's averaging 8.4 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 1.1 assists. Against the game versus Atlanta, he got 12 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. So, very good stat line. He's had uh, I guess multiple games where he's had double digits in points, and he's had um, a really good amount of rebounds. So points and rebounds are where most of his value is, but he can get decent, I guess, a category coverage for most categories, and is going to have decent minutes going forward until Serge Ibaka comes back. So if you're looking for a center on the waiver wire, he's definitely someone that you want to take a look at. And next, I have Dorian Finney-Smith. He's averaging 8.3 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 1.4 assists. Um, he's a player that, again, he gets decent minutes almost every game, and he's gets a decent amount of rebounds. He can get some steals and he can get some assists for you, and he can occasionally get blocks, and he has some upside in threes and points. And again, he does get a lot of minutes, so you don't have to worry about him not playing enough for the most part. So if you're in a deep league and you need a small forward or a power forward, you should take a look at him. And next, I have Nicholas Claxton for the Brooklyn Nets. He's about 13% rostered right now. He has 9.3 points, 3.9 rebounds, and one assist. He's been getting more minutes because he's been on fire right now. His game against Washington, he got 16 points, three rebounds, one steal, and three blocks. So again, very solid, and he's been getting decent numbers across most categories. And his minutes has been going up. His field goal is decent. His free throws is okay. And if you're in a deep league and you need a center, he's basically somebody that you want to take a look at. I think going forward, more people are probably going to be picking him up. So if you're in a shallow league, you might want to put him on a watch list depending on how well he performs. And that's pretty much my first three.
All right. Let me just move into some of my picks here. I got Taylor Horton Tucker from the LA Lakers. He's about 35% roster. He's been added around 20% in the last week. This is following the LeBron James injury. Both LeBron and AD being out of the lineup definitely opens up some minutes. And he's played well. His last 5 games, he's averaged around 15 points. He's averaged around 5 rebounds. He's averaged around 5 assists as well. He's just playing really solid. He'll throw in some steals and blocks in there. His free throw is almost perfect. His field goal can really leave more to be desired. So you might want to fade him on the field goal, but everything else he's really solid. He's putting good numbers up. He can be picked up in any level of league, whether it's a standard 12-team league or even deeper than that. So definitely Horton Tucker's a must add. And then I got Dwight Howard here. Embiid is still out for the 76ers. So Dwight Howard, he's the guy. He's doubled in 4 out of his last 5 games. So really solid for points, rebounds. He'll get around 1 assist per game, and then around 1 steal and around 2 blocks per game. So pretty solid. Obviously, Dwight Howard's not great for free throws, so don't pick him up for that, and his field goal is pretty decent. It's around point 500, so definitely a solid pickup. And just looking at one more player I have here, I have Jordan Poole for the Golden State Warriors. He's around 40% rostered in Yahoo leagues. He's added close to 10% in the last week, so definitely people are jumping on this guy. I mean, he's just been going crazy in his last 3 games. He's averaged around 25 points. He's averaged around 3 rebounds, around 3 assists. He's averaged around 1.5 steals. He's been perfect in those 3 games on his free throw, and his field goal's been averaging over point 500. So definitely a must add. He's being added across all leagues. So definitely Jordan Poole is a must add for fantasy. And I'll get back to you, Nate, for your last few picks.
All right. So for my fourth pick, I've got Patrick Williams. He's averaging 9.9 points, five rebounds, 1.3 assists. Um, his Utah game wasn't the best. He got 6 points, four rebounds, and one in every other category. But in his Detroit game, he got 10 points, seven rebounds, one assist, and two blocks. He's 17% rostered, so he's a deeply player that can get multiple categories for you. He gets decent minutes. His field goal and his free throws, they're kind of streaky, but he does have high upside. So I think he's somebody that you can consider putting on your team. Uh, Again, I guess field goal is the only thing to watch out for, but I think you have if you have other players with high field goal, then you shouldn't have to worry too much. And next, I have Isaiah Roby. He's averaging 9 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1.8 assists. He's been getting a very good amount of minutes as well. His points has been getting multiple double uh, digits in points. He gets decent amount of rebounds. He gets good amount of assists and a decent amount of steals, and he can occasionally get blocks. So he's a player that you're mostly gonna look for to have points and rebounds, but he can fill in other categories for you as well. His field goal is pretty decent, and his free throws are pretty decent as well. So if you're in a deep league, I definitely recommend you pick up Isaiah Roby. And my last pick is Ty Jerome. Um, he's about 7% rostered right now. He's averaging 9.4 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. He's been getting pretty good minutes, and he gets a lot of threes. He gets a decent amount of rebounds for a guard. He gets a lot of assists. He gets a okay amount of steals. So uh, if you need somebody who can shoot threes and get points and get some assists, you should, I guess, definitely take a look at Ty Jerome, especially if you're in a deep league.
All right, that sounds good. I have a couple more pickups here. TJ McConnell from the Indiana Pacers. You can play both point guard and shooting guard. He's close to 50% rostered in Yahoo leagues. He's been added close to 15% in the last week. So definitely a guy that people are jumping on. He's ranked 62 on the season. I'd say in his last four games, he's averaged close to 15 points. He's averaged around 5 rebounds. He's averaged like around 9 assists. So he's really doing well there. He's gotten at least one steal per game, up to 3 steals a game. He'll throw in a block here and there. Perfect free throw. Uh, Averaging a field goal of point 700 in his last 4 games. So this guy is just balling at another level. McConnell's a must add in standard leagues. Deep leagues, he's probably not even available. So he's close to 50%. Pick him up if you see him on the waiver in standard leagues. And if he's there somehow in deep leagues, pick him up as well. He's pretty much a must add as he's almost 50%, might even be over 50% after we upload this podcast. So I definitely keep an eye out for him. And then just one more pickup that I have is Alec Burks from the New York Knicks. He's around 35% roster. He's been added almost 10% in the last week. He's just been playing really solid as of late. I'd say in his last 3 games, he's averaged around 20 points. He's averaged around 7 rebounds. He's averaged around 2 assists. Really solid. He had 3 steals in his last game. He's had a block in each of his past 3 games, almost a perfect free throw. His field goal has been pretty good as well. So definitely a must add is Alec Burks from the New York Knicks. And um, that was my last pickup. So I guess we'll just move into some of the news from around the NBA. I'll definitely look at a couple of major injuries here. Um, LeBron James suffered a high ankle sprain on Saturday, and it looks like he'll be out indefinitely. I did talk to our injury analyst, Victoria, and she definitely said that high ankle sprains are in terms of timetable, they're around a 3 week to 3 month timetable. So just depending on the player and the severity, it's anywhere between 3 weeks and 3 months. So we don't know how long LeBron James is going to be out, but what do you think this means for the Lakers?
Everybody else on the team is gonna have to step up. So I guess you're probably going to see higher production from players that you wouldn't expect. For example, Alex Caruso just hasn't had a chance to, I guess, in, get enough production, but he was able to kind of jump up and get 7 points and 4 rebounds in their last game. And KCP also had seven points. So especially from I guess positions where You would expect LeBron to play. Other players would have to kind of fill in for that. So that's probably gonna be probably the biggest impact for the Lakers.
Yeah, we saw Schroeder and Harrell take over in that last game for the Lakers in terms of point wise. Yeah, those two will be the two major pieces in my mind for this Lakers team moving forward if they want to keep their playoff spot without LeBron and also big man Anthony Davis.
Yeah, for sure. Probably Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell are probably going to have a big jump in production. So if you have them on your roster, don't forget to start them.
Yeah, and just another injury that we can get to. It looks like Lamelo Ball will miss the rest of the season. He's got a wrist fracture. He's most likely going to need surgery. He's definitely getting a second opinion on this. And I guess that's just a tough blow for the Hornets. I know that they did win Monday's game without Lamelo Ball, but I guess if they were thinking of trying to go on a deep run in the playoffs, it's going to be really tough without one of their best players.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for the Hornets, but I guess it's kind of like one of the things that kind of spoiled what would have been such a great year for the Hornets. I'd still say this is probably their most successful year in a long time, especially if they're able to make the playoffs. So, I mean, this is bad news, but it could definitely be worse for the Hornets.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess just using that to transition into looking at the Eastern Conference standings as we speak. The Charlotte Hornets are in the sixth position. The NBA did announce this week that they'll be having a play-in round. So the 7 to 10 seeds will sort of play for the last two playoff spots. They'll do whether it's a mini series or whatever it might be. So it looks like from teams 7 to 10, they'll all have a chance to make the playoffs after the season has finished. And what do you think about that?
That's kind of interesting. I think they did something similar during the bubble as well.
Yeah, I believe that might have just been the eighth and ninth only, if I'm not mistaken. But this will be the 7, 8, 9, and 10 play in. So I believe the seventh will face the 10th, the eighth will face the ninth, and I guess the two winners will get the two spots there in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, that's good. There's a little bit more leniency this year. So if you weren't able to make the top eight, there is still a chance.
Yeah, but a team like the 11th seed Toronto Raptors just seem to just be falling further and further out of it. They're not even in a top 10 spot after losing their ninth straight. I think it might be over for the Raptors this year.
Unless they turn things around exactly at the next game, that's kind of what it's looking like. I feel like this losing streak might end up being worse before it gets better, but we'll have to see.
Hopefully, it doesn't become another Houston Rockets level losing streak.
That's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, and I mean, Houston does stay above the Minnesota Timberwolves after getting that win, but they're, of course, still too far from the playoffs in the West. Those four teams there in that bubble area, the Spurs at seventh, losing Monday night. The Dallas Mavericks winning Sunday night, they're in eighth. Then you got the Golden State Warriors, they're in ninth, and the Memphis Grizzlies, who won Monday night, they're in 10th. So, I mean, there's all good teams there. Any of those four could make the playoffs. So, what do you think about those four teams?
It's gonna be a really tough race to the playoffs, that's for sure.
And yeah, especially for a team like the San Antonio Spurs, who were just so much higher up, and they've just been so inconsistent as of late, only winning 5 out of their last 10. Man, if they go into a series against the Grizzlies, I mean, anything can happen, and I'm just afraid that the Spurs might not come out on top because I like being inconsistent like this. The Grizzlies, they've looked really solid as of late.
Yeah, I think the Grizzlies are not the best matchup for the Spurs either.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Just any other thoughts that you might have here on the Western Conference or even the East?
Um, Not really too much. I think that I guess the playoff teams are pretty much looking how this is pretty much how we can kind of expect it to look. Definitely from 1 to 5, it's going to be one of one of these five teams, I guess, especially in the West. But things could shuffle around a bit. Um, Hopefully, the Raptors can turn things around in the next few games. Otherwise, there's 100% going to be no hope. But right now, it's just a 70 to 80% no hope. So there's still a chance.
I mean, yeah, they'll definitely have to start turning things around right away. And yeah, let's just use that as a way to transition to our preview of Tuesday's slate. I know you've definitely been doing a better job at picking some of these games than I have. For sure, you are more of an expert on ball than I am. So let me just cut it straight with you for the slate on Tuesday. We have the Denver Nuggets at the Orlando Magic. We've got a spread of about 7.5 points favoring the Denver Nuggets. After their most recent loss, do you think that they'll keep it close with Orlando, or do you think that they can win by more than that?
I think it's possible that they can win by more than 7 points, but I'm not entirely sure. So, I think you could still go with Denver for 7 points.
Yeah, I think that Denver has been pretty hot as of late. They just did have a misstep in their last game, but they should be able to get back on track. Speaking of a team that needs to get back on track, we have the LA Lakers at the New Orleans Pelicans. The Lakers are underdogs by 6 points. Um, do you think the Pelicans can win by that much? I think that they might, but I don't know about you.
Um, by 6 points. I mean, maybe it depends how much I guess Montrezl Harrell kind of steps up. It's gonna be hard, especially with Zion, and they don't have LeBron and Anthony Davis to kind of mitigate that. So that's another thing to factor in as well.
This could be a bigger score than even 6 points.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
And then just moving to the next game, the Washington Wizards at the New York Knicks. Do you think the Knicks play better here, or do you think Washington can take this game? It's only a 2 point spread either way, favoring the Knicks.
Um, hmm, I think that there's a chance that Washington can come back.
Do you see Washington taking the game, or do you still see the Knicks taking this?
Um, it's hard to say. I guess. hmm, I guess I'll go with Washington on this.
Yeah, I know Washington has been playing better. I guess to be different, I kind of like the Knicks in this matchup. They kind of went down in a heartbreak last game, and I think that they might try and rebound. Just looking at a game here, we don't have a spread for yet. Most likely the Brooklyn Nets will be favored against the Portland Trailblazers. It looks like Brooklyn will be without Kyrie Irving for this game. Does that make Portland a decent chance at winning this game, or is this game still firmly in Brooklyn's hands?
I think as long as both James Harden and Kevin Durant are still healthy, then I think it's still firmly in the Brooklyn Nets' hands. Basically, it's instead of well, I guess it's like you can't count out the Brooklyn Nets basically.
Yeah, they've just been very dominant. And then the last game on the slate, the Philadelphia 76ers at the Golden State Warriors. No Joel Embiid, obviously, in this game. Who takes this, Golden State or Philadelphia?
I think it's gonna be close, especially without Joel Embiid. So there is a possibility of an up. an upset, but Philadelphia is still really deep. So I
I'm
guess,
liking Philly as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they it'll just depend on the spread, obviously, but if we're just picking sort of a winner without a spread, yeah, I'm really liking Philly as well. Like you said, they're deep. They can win without a guy like Embiid. So I know Golden State is not really deep at any of the big forward or center positions, so it's going to be really tough for them against Philly.
it'll basically be the Steph Curry show and the Draymond Green show.
Yeah, well, Golden State's going to really need to pull out one of their best efforts if they're going to get the win here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, and that's sort of a wrap previewing the Tuesday slate here. Thanks again for listening to Big Time Basketball presented by the Fantasy Fanatics Podcast. Um, we are now on Twitter and Instagram at FanFan Podcast. So definitely go check us out. We try to provide some picks every day for both NHL and NBA. And of course, we'll definitely be providing picks when the NFL gets back for the next season. But yeah, we try and give you some picks. Take them, fade them, whatever you like. We just put them there because some people have been asking for some picks for games. So we definitely try and provide those. So once again, just thank you for listening to this episode of Big Time Basketball. Nate, thanks again, and we'll talk to you guys on the next episode.